What a powerfully imaginative score, and what a great way to start off this group of scores, the dotted semi-brev entries. I mean, it just almost seems like you have anticipated my every objection, and taken pains to avoid me saying, "Hey, have you thought of such and such or so and so?" I feel that this is really strong. All the same, I am going to make a lot of suggestions, but it's still so cool. I just really felt that you had thought a lot about a lot of my criteria, and you'd done it in your own way, without, of course, seeing my criteria, which I don't make public until I'm ready to evaluate everybody's score, because that would take the fun out of it, right? Wouldn't it? If everybody were just saying, "Oh yeah, Thomas is going to watch out for this, so I shouldn't do that." I already have a list of things to watch out for, which are just common scoring things, right? Not things that are unique to this particular piece. But yeah, emotional and timbral progressions, wow, in buckets, right? Pitch weight in the upper middle register of the piano, that was not really an issue just because of the quality of the timbre and the use of some lower register instruments in different places. So that was not a big concern. Expansion of scope, representing expansion and progression of emotional and timbral qualities. Oh yeah. And then going on, all those ongoing concerns about progressing the texture and middle voices and everything else, I think you addressed fine. Really love the horns coming in here, just beautifully expressive. And then here, like at C, you just really went all out, right? I'm not sure where everybody's going to breathe in some of these, like for instance the oboes and the English horns. You might want to throw in a few little spots where one player or another can just take a quick breath. But yeah, okay, so let's run through this. I think this is going to be incredibly fun. So, kind of starting off here, I don't really see any need for A2 flutes. As I was sort of mentioning before in a couple of previous evaluations just recently, that you get the added, since you don't really get added strength of tone, just a tiny bit. You get maybe more firmness, more roundness, but it isn't like twice as loud or anything. But you do get twice the breath, right? Twice the breath sound. It's not a huge concern, but it does become sort of noticeable when you kind of mass more and more flutes on top of one another. So I really don't see the need for for added flutes right in here. It's not going to help you balance against the English horn and the oboes, which are going to they can start really soft and push into this and not interfere, not cloud up this too much. But I mean, I can see the concern here. You're thinking, oh well, A2 flutes, that will be something that will help to address the concern of the horns playing right in here, and they are a concern. They will have a tendency, they'll probably be playing more like triple P right in here, to if let's say a conductor worked on this, they might really be getting the horns to play way down. So to affect a kind of a balance right in here. So yeah, it's always kind of a risky thing having low flutes and horns working together. But I appreciate the effort at balancing this, and I think that it's workable so long as everybody is really listening to each other. I mean, to a degree. I mean, you already have the clarinets in there. What do you need the horns for? And it's for timbral quality. I understand, right? And then we have the oboe and English horn pushing in here on those octave E's. That's great. And then here we get a completely different quality as well, insinuating itself from out of the texture. So cool. Going up to the A. I mean, I think if you are thinking so much about the nuances and about everything else, you should be thinking about importing slurs like this from the piano part, right? And like maybe having different patterns of tonguing and slurring and everything else, all right? Because, all right, slurring over repeated notes and things like that, what does that mean? Leaving it up to the player, is that something you want to do? All right. Yeah, but like all this, like this low piccolo, low flute playing, really soft clarinets, like you really are taking some time. And like yes, there is dynamic mixing in here, but it is done in a way where it's very, very simple. Like there, at most there are like two different approaches, leaving out those instruments which naturally need to be marked up or down, like brass and harp and so on. So yeah, so I think that this works great, like the low flutes and the clarinets and a little touch of bass clarinet there. So you are right here. You are bridging. There's that little suspended note, right, that is holding on to it as these pitches lift. But where's the one in the middle, right? Couldn't the bass clarinet have stuck around and supplied the one that's missing? Anyway, all right, and then you've got this beautiful gushing harp, exactly right, I think, well placed. It's going to work fine, and then pianissimo, like a little crescendo into this. I think that if this dynamic is going to last for the entire bar, it would be interesting to know where, like, is this going up to piano? But I mean, it's probably not necessary. I think it's fine just the way it is. But like, you don't need to mark another pianissimo, because like the connotation here is like, oh, well, something is changing right in here, so we have to go back to pianissimo. So like, am I going up to mezzo piano here, and we go down to a piano, and then, oh no, I have to go back to soft again. So you don't need this in here. All you need is one. If all you have is just like equal hairpins 3 times in a row, and you don't even need this one here, right? So you're just going to be going down to, but I would give you I would give the players a destination one, like triple P or something. Okay. And then this horn fading out right here. Yeah, I mean, I think this all works pretty well. I don't think I would have piano horns and pianissimo bass clarinet. I think the bass clarinet can be piano as well. Right, so here we have an example of the instruments more or less staying out of each other's way, and everybody playing soft, and therefore there's no need for the horn to play incredibly soft right in here to balance everything. And also, you don't have instruments that are easily buried, right? So I think that this all works great. There's no need to mark the horns as pianissimo. And then, then oboe octaves taking over. It's a beautiful, beautiful sound. All right. Yeah, and this is great. And then bringing in a little bit of flute in its stronger register. Yeah, this just all works great. And how everything. So, what do you mean by three? What do you mean by 3 notes in a row that are repeated? Right? What do you mean by these 2 notes in a row that are repeated under a slur? So maybe these could be all like portato, like right? Or maybe you could figure out some different configuration for the slurs. All right. Then, possible, I think you just put a triple P at the end of this, and I think that's fine. Because like they're already in a soft register, and they're playing alongside all of these other instruments, right? It's fine. Just triple P. It's fine. Okay, great first page. Woohoo. Now, next page. All right, so here we go. La Melodia Ben Cantando. I'm sure that you're looking at this now and saying, oh, damn it, I forgot to put in this dynamic for the oboes. All right, so there it is. Okay. All right, so here you're using your horns. I mean, I can see the logic of what you're doing. This is all possible. And as far as I know, Edward, you are a horn player. You're a low horn player, and you love this kind of stuff. You love low A's. and it's no problem for you. And I would say that this is pretty workable. But what I would say is that it's ungraceful, right? And you might think, oh, just say that again to my face. Right. But I mean, it doesn't really have the same kind of fluidity. Like, you could give this to, like, this could be like tuba and this could be bass clarinet, right? Working together. Or, there could be other combinations as well. Or this could be a tuba line with a contrabassoon playing just like one low note rather than going up like this, right? So there are a bunch of different ways of interpreting this that are a little less, like, they have more fluidity and less grunt, right? Or less like the kind of real low, dark, slightly wild sound of low horns, right? So there will be that kind of sense of wildness to this. So, I mean, if you're happy with that, great. It works fine. It's a way of economizing on your brass. If you do not, like, let's say that you actually really did score this for an orchestra that had plenty of winds, but like just 2 horn players or 4 horn players, then I think that, like, then that's fine. That's great. But look, if you can add, more heavy brass and stuff, or trade off some roles, maybe bass clarinet or something like that, I think this can end up sounding a lot smoother. Okay. All right, so lots of beautiful dovetailing and so on, and like in this, see, like, so here is an example of the middle voice, right? Like rising up into the pattern, playing all the notes, continuing on, and hanging on to that pitch as the next phrase rises from the bottom and continues on, right? So that is what I mean by paying attention to the middle voice and its function, right? So this is one entry which I feel really has got that, has thought about that particular aspect. That doesn't mean, just because you didn't do this the same way doesn't mean your score isn't great. Okay, it's just, this is an example of what I was talking about in my list of concerns. All right. So, but once again, I would say even at that, even with heaping praise upon this, I still think you could have come up with better, like, with a better slurring pattern, especially, particularly for the strings, right? Do you really want this all under one bow? Da, by the time the player gets to the end here, he has no bow left, and then all of a sudden a faster up bow. Da, da. Why not just divide it up a little bit more evenly? Da, 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 da. So, because, like you're saying, la melodia ben cantando, in a singing style. So not a smooth, sort of featureless, matte finish wall kind of a style, but like a more of like a beautiful undulating melody, right? So, and with that, you want to give the string players more control over it by having shorter bow lengths, I feel. Right? And then why ta? Why not ta-da? Up, down bow, right? Okay. All right, so one thing I would mention here is, like, sometimes you connect the second bassoon to the contrabassoon, and sometimes you don't. I think you could easily have your second bassoonist hit this low D and play off of it, and then have this just be an eighth note rather than holding on to it. Yeah, I mean, I just feel like the more that you sort of stop and start on a flowing line like this, then the less connected it feels. You're going da 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 ta, right, rather than da da ta, right? If the bassoon were to, the second bassoon were to connect. So yeah, so just think about little, like, you're obviously thinking about little nuanced parts and so on, right? And then, da, don't you want da ta ta ta? Like, there's like no emphasis on the downbeat? Where's the, nobody is tonguing, nobody is bowing on the downbeat. The only person tonguing on the downbeat is this poor third horn player here, right? So really, you just rethink the way that you're slurring everything. There's got to be some kind of, there's got to be some kind of punch. It can't just be every other bar, right? And then nobody for 3 or 4 bars. So yeah, so just think about that. It's just, the slurring really does have an effect on the, and I don't agree with the, leaving it up to the players and so on and so forth. I mean, I think like when you're really in a rush and you're doing, chart after chart after chart, and a lot of it is really obvious, cinematic scoring and crossover scoring and things like that. Okay, that's one thing, but this is high level concert scoring that we're talking about here, and in that instance, you are the craft orchestrator. Like, to you, a slur, has a lot of meaning. We're starting down here in the basement. We are pushing up towards the tenor register. That is all being done in one breath by the bassoonist. What does that mean in terms of the color having continuity, right? Here you've got your flutes, playing up, just sort of holding onto this breath and ending right in here. Could they have just continued on and played the entire thing under one breath? Yes. This is a logical place to take a breath, right? But still, I mean, could things match and then have more, like when the phrasing, slurring matches in the winds and the strings, then you have a more emphatic, more directed kinds of emotion in the singing line, right? It can still soar, it can still be smooth. You just write, ben cantando e legato, right? And then just everybody connects everything, and it doesn't actually have to, like, it can be separately tongued, but just so long as it's marked legato, there will be a sense of continuity from pitch to pitch. All right, you probably already know all this stuff. You're a pretty accomplished musician, but I just want you to think about it more, all right, in situations like this, and make your beautiful approach even more effective. All right, so we're getting on here towards B. So kind of, same comments, same issues, same everything right in here. All right, and then the emergence of the horns right in here. So great. Here, I would say that, like, this is going to be this big, beautiful, bright moment that opens out. It wouldn't hurt anything at all if you had a crescendo here in the figuration, and then following the same diminuendo, but maybe not going all the way down to pianissimo, of course. Just like maybe diminuendo back to, so I would just say like crescendo here, diminuendo, and then back to mezzo forte by around here. That's how I would handle this, because I think that, like, the horns are just so glorious and they're so gorgeous there, and they're just going to bury everything else, right? I think that there needs to be a little bit more, since you're not doubling these pitches with anybody from the winds, nor do you need to, right? I think it's fine just to have the strings be what they were, but just, keeping in mind that all of a sudden they're absent of the bassoons and the contrabassoon doubling. And then the strings have got to carry this all by themselves. Well, despite the fact that we have this diminuendo, not in every part for some strange reason, but we have this diminuendo here. I still think that the figuration in the middle strings needs a little bit of help. All right, so, but yeah, glorious, just a wonderful sound there, and then going down to pianissimo. And then this emerging, this is all fine with me. And I think that, this being a diminuendo from mezzo forte, I think is fine, just on, just in the cellos and so on. That works fine for me. I think that possibly a diminuendo in the violas might also be a way of easing, to make this more connected, right? Rather than just falling off a cliff here and just being absent, right? Of course, you also have the horns to smooth that out. So it's not a huge thing, but Just wondering if there's some way of finessing that. But this is all real lovely in here. Flutes above, clarinets and bass clarinet. It's just a wonderful round reedy sound with the kind of floating flutes on top. Yeah, and then with the violins taking over here, and we have our wandering melody. Okay, but it sort of is. Just like before, phrases interrupt us, right? So do these really connect together? Like, is there a sense of continuity? What would have happened if the second violins had actually played this E before moving on, and then the first violins had actually played this G, right? Wouldn't it have all connected together a little bit more elegantly? See, I think that, like, when you have a situation like this where you're interpreting a figuration of sort of a left-hand line or whatever, and then you just end up with this, and there's no dovetailing. There's just like adding the next thing. I think that you take away the sense of continuity, right? We really want the continuity of this line to rise through all the parts. So just having one follow the other, right? Here we have a follow-on with no dovetailing. Here we have an adding on with no dovetailing. So I think that you can hear it in the mock-up. There isn't a sense of just like of the part just really rising through the different instruments. There really is just sort of like, hey, I'm saying this part of it, I'm saying this part of it, and I'm saying this part of it. So they really feel like three separate statements. Same thing here, I feel. So if you want to connect them all together, add the dovetailing. But this is really, really cool in here. Flute taking over that upper line, and then just lovely stuff right in here with the horns. Yeah. And I just really love the way that you are really using the domain of piano as its own place, right? It's like it is a big, beautiful world, and I think that this score really shows how big it is, right? I mean, I think people just sort of think about piano as being one step on a ladder, right? With pianissimo below it and mezzo piano above it. But I think that, like, it's more like this big world, with pianissimo being this little kind of edge off to one side, and mezzo piano being the place where it merges together with mezzo forte, right? So I think there's plenty of space in piano for nuances and for expression and for an entire world of things going on. And I really like the way that you are interpreting that. And this is really great. See, this dovetailing right here is going to make it really feel like one solid line going forwards. All right, see, now I get to start evaluating the section at C. That makes me feel really happy. Now, yeah, first thing I think about looking at this is just like, where are the oboists and the English horn going to breathe, right? And where are the third and fourth horn players going to breathe? Yeah, this all kind of works for me. I'm kind of wondering why there needs to be, why do you need to double the fourth horn here with the second? I mean, obviously, doubling the fourth horn with the second just to kind of give it more weight. But in which case, why didn't that happen throughout the part? Because boy, that low fourth horn could really could really use some support right in there, playing that low sounding G, right? It's the same G's here as the cellos are playing. So yeah, there's that. So I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it's just I'm kind of wondering, like, why is there doubling or isn't there doubling, right? Why isn't there more doubling by the second horn? Like, there's pretty much nothing like that. Like, here you have the second horn going, like just kind of playing those two sounding G's in a row, but the first horn kind of doesn't really need any help from the second horn because they've already got the third horn helping them, right? You are trying to get this to come through, this sense of going up an octave, but the way that this is scored, it is going to get buried in the context of the repeating octaves, right? So, like, unless you were to cut out one part like this, like if you were to cut out the third and the first and third horns as the second horn slurs upwards, and you had that underlined by somebody like the bass clarinet, then I think it just, you know, I mean, you've already got your bassoonist doing something similar, right? So I think, you know, you're wanting to trade off with that and so on. But like the thing is that the weight is, you know, you've got everybody marked pianissimo, and you've got this, you know, sort of bump, 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 bump. You got these G's just kind of playing away at it here. So I think that like the part of what you are trying to achieve here is going to get swallowed up just by the sense of, you know, the third and fourth horns just kind of repeating over and over and over and over again. So that's, I hate to say it, but I think that that is the outcome. But I mean, you're underlining that with the pizzicato cellos and so on and so forth. So, you know, maybe if you were to bring certain elements into the foreground instead of having them way back in the back, right? Maybe if you were to bring the bassoons forward to piano and the pizzicato cellos and the second horn right in here, that would be enough, I think, to make a difference. All right. Now, you may have forgotten something, but anytime you have this kind of finger tremolo, you got to give us slurs between the pitches, right? That's the, you know, it's not enough to have the alternating pitches and the triple beam. You also have to give us the slur too, because otherwise it really means, you know, like the players are just massively like kind of tremoloing as fast as they possibly can with the bow going back and forth between the two pitches, which is kind of impossible, right? So just make sure that you put in the slur just to give it more meaning. And also, it just helps tie things together. I mean, look at how clear that is compared to this, right? These sort of jittery, this kind of jittery looking stuff going on. All right, so how does it all tie together? So, you know, I've already stated my my slight reservations about how this is all working. But, you know, double basses carrying these low pitches here. And contrabassoon, I mean, so like if you want this pulse to come through in the double basses, then you'll have the contrabassoon playing the same rhythmic pitches as the double basses rather than just kind of this low foghorn, right? So if you want like the cushion of the contrabass behind the double basses kind of punctuating this, then it would be better for these to be pizzicato. So just leave it the way it is, pizzicato at a piano dynamic, like once again bringing this up all forwards in the sound picture, and the contrabassoon in the background, right? But I don't think you need to do that. I think you just need to have the same part in both parts, so the same durations in both parts. All right, so moving on, like this wonderful stuff going on here, and I can see, like, you know, putting the winds and the horns behind the strings so that you just really get this, you know, right? And, you know, actually, you could also be doing this, right? Just to kind of make it all feel like one thing, so that there isn't kind of like you don't have the implication of this being kind of like a new thing that starts, right? Yeah, same thing here. Right. I think this is what you mean. Right. Okay. So I think that it all works really great at pianissimo. I think that this all works fine. I think that these like really fluttery patterns in the oboe are going to kind of swallow up what's happening in the flutes and the clarinets to a degree, just because of the incidence of motion is faster, right? But I mean, I think that I wouldn't recommend more dynamic mixing or anything like that. I just think that it'll play the way that it plays, right? I think you could bring forward the piccolo and the flutes if you wanted to a little bit, and maybe the clarinets, but, you know, and then keep the oboe in the background. But I think that it all works fine the way it is. I think that it's wise to keep this sort of backgroundy. Now, I have to say that is like the loudest sounding celesta, and I checked out the mixer, and the you know, you hadn't shoved the faders forwards massively in the celesta part. So yeah, I don't know why, but for some reason that celesta part is just hugely, just sounds huge. I would actually mark this mezzo piano. I don't think you want it to be. I don't think you want it to be so dominant, or even piano. I mean, I think that you want this to be just a glittering sound that adds to what's going on. But I don't think you want it to be massive. And then yeah, just these little glissandos. Maybe you only need two, right, rather than three. But I would say like everything else works. I would just be worried about the effectiveness of the second horns, like contributing to like an alternating G octave going upwards, because it just seems to me like the meaning of that gets swallowed up, and I think also the meaning of what's going on here in the bassoons gets swallowed up by the repeated horns. So that's just something to think about. But I think that it all works fine. But once again, like a lot of this might clear up immediately if you had like tuba and bass trombone and so on and so forth. If you had more lower brass or more lower winds, like a third trombonist, a third bassoonist, those kinds of things. So anyway, so think about all those things. I think it's a really strong score. Just as I said before, a really strong start to this group of dotted semibrev entries, and just as with other situations, there was more that you did. I would have loved to have taken a look at this D section and so on. But like really great, excellent work, Edward. It's really awesome to have you as a part of the community and have you as a participant in this orchestration challenge, and just moreover, have you as a supporter to the orchestration challenge on this particular very meaningful orchestration challenge. And so thank you so much for all of that, and for the work that you put into this score. And yeah, look, everybody watching, you know what to do. There are a lot of things I'm sure that people have to say about this score. A lot of suggestions, probably a lot of really positive reactions. Just dump everything below this, and I'm sure that it'll all be very helpful to Edward. And so with that, I am just going to sign off for now, but I will see you in the next evaluation. Thanks, everybody.